Welcome here. We're going to talk about Psi Combinator. And so, what is Psi Combinator? So, we started this thing called DeSci NYC a couple months ago. And basically what happens is we have speakers who come. We've had the guy who invented the NFT. We've had Martin Shkreli. We've had Research Hub. And it kind of just gets together everyone who's interested in DeSci in the New York City area. And each time we have a lot of people come out. And after, people were DMing us and saying hey, we want to get more involved and we want to do more things with DeSci. And we didn't really have anything they asked do you have a website we can go to? I want to get more involved. I want to start my own project. I want to join a project. And I didn't really have anything to tell people, really. And so Psi Combinator sort of came out of that need of oh, it would be neat if there was some ecosystem of projects that people could join or they could start their own. And so I thought that it would be nice to start something where it would be sort of a cross between a university and an accelerator and a science fair, and sort of bring all these people together, because there wasn't really anything that was able to do that for DeSci specifically. And science has something that's very different about it than a traditional accelerator. It's okay if things don't work, no results are good. And so we started DeSci and we started Psi Combinator to deal with that. And what we're thinking about this is a pop-up research lab. So this isn't supposed to be a really complicated thing. It's supposed to be very lightweight, very easy. You test things out and you learn from each other. That's sort of a big part is because DeSci is still so new, it's not even clear what a DeSci project is, or what are the best practices around getting users or getting participants, or finding out how to publish, or what are the right statistical methods you should be using. And so because there was so much unanswered territory here, the only way I thought to do was to have people learn from each other and to sort of go in as lockstep as possible, for people to come up with a research question and to figure out a timeline, and to how to figure out how to recruit participants, and then for them to figure out how to analyze the data and publish it. And so there should be research hubs of these sort of pop up within an ecosystem. And I think you get something that's more than the sum of the parts when you have multiple people doing it together, because you can learn from each other, and you kind of have a working group that you can, a peer support group that would be really helpful. So it's each person that's added to the group here is sort of adds more. You get more than the sum of the parts out. So it's sort of beneficial for people to join and for other people to bring other people in, because if there's 3, it's not as useful as if there's 10 or 20 groups. So what is this sort of designed for? So I think if this Psi Combinator will work well if you're a scientist, and I think scientist here can be defined pretty broadly. So it can be a traditional scientist or a trad scientist, or you can be sort of a self-taught scientist, someone who is an amateur or a prosumer, and you've just become really interested in a field of study, and you are probably one of the experts in that field. And you are a scientist, but not just a traditional scientist, but maybe a scientist or a self-taught scientist who is interested in exploring different methods for doing science. So, if you want to do normal science, you can publish it through traditional means. You can go to a university. But I think what DeSci is cool is they're sort of finding out this other method of doing science in a more distributed way, where you have multiple people around the world working on a project, and they're incentivized in a cool way, and it uses some sort of blockchain in a new way. So I think that's one type of person, is a scientist. The other one is a programmer. So if you're a programmer and you just have a lot of tech skills, and you want to get into DeSci, I think this program would work well for you as well. Then there's also people who don't know how to program, and we've been talking to some of them, and I think, you know, there's enough tools that exist out in the DeSci ecosystem now for it to make sense to have scientists who have a skill in some other area who will then use DeSci tools to collect data. So for example, like psychology or organizational behavior or mental health, or there's all sorts of other types of fields of science that don't require programming to be a core competency, or maybe you can sort of hack your way through it with GPT-4 and Stack Overflow to code just enough to make it work. And then lastly, I think another good use case here would be for if you have like a startup that you're doing. Say you're doing a like a social media app of some sort, or you're doing like a publishing tool or something, and it doesn't quite fit into the DeSci ecosystem right now, but you have an idea of like, oh, I could use this. This would like DeSci would be like a really good place to try it out. I think that would also be something that would be good for Sci Combinator. So here's the projects we've accepted so far. We have Arbiter, which is doing like econ research, Collective, which is doing an incentivized clinical trial platform, Cannabis DAO, which is doing cannabis research, and then Cannabis Genome, which is doing like more cannabis but genetics. Cyclone, which is a new way of collecting DeSci data. Data Blocks, they're trying to automate DeSci analytics, or not DeSci analytics, DeSci data. DermDAO, which is democratizing skin healthcare. Future Folklore, all things UFO and alien, and bringing that to the Earth. Koji DAO, they're using new sort of like upcycling techniques for food. NutraDAO, nootropics, improve brain health. Cydex is doing publishing. Social DAO is doing like social science on chain. Voluntas is connecting patients with researchers. And lastly, I hope everyone here considers applying as well. And what's cool is like all of these projects are going to be going sort of through this same 4-week program and learning from each other. You guys can use each other's tools. You can get feedback from each other. So I think it will really actually be quite beneficial to all be doing this together. So what are some of the benefits? So one of them is like deadlines. So we will have some deadlines that are recommended, which I think people should abide by if you can. You know, when I was a PhD student, the deadline of having a paper deadline was something that would actually force me to get things done. So we've broken it up into a couple different deadlines to help you with that. Each other. So obviously, like the main thing is it's like a journal club, and I'll describe more about the journal club architecture in a second. But there's gonna be a lot of learning from each other and a lot of like cross-pollination. We have some mentors that are gonna be really cool. These are really, really high quality mentors. We don't just like, if you can look at our like DeSci NYC, we don't just get random people speaking. We actually like vet them and make sure they're high quality. You guys can use each other's stuff, so you can like dog food it. So like if someone has a cool thing and they're like, oh, if only we had a user base. Well, if you're part of Sci Combinator, you already have like 15 other projects that you can just reach out to, and each person can sort of use each other's project. Funding. We're going to try and get some funding for it. It's not going to be a ton, but we're working on getting people money more so if they put more energy into it, and if they don't have it already. Don't expect a ton there, but we're working on it. Share resources. So as I talked about, people are going to find things and share them within the community here. Shared experiences. I think just there's nothing like trauma bonding to get everyone closer together and innovative. We'll have a demo day, and then so you can we'll invite a lot of people. It'll probably be at DeSci NYC, and we have a lot of people there. And then finally, the network going forward. So there'll be like a private Telegram group that you'll be part of. And I think this will be like a great core for figuring out DeSci projects, figuring out like your career path down the road with DeSci. So funding. So we're trying to get funding together. It will probably happen. I don't have anything specific to say on it yet, but it'll be on the smaller side. But we'll have the ability to also have other people contribute as well. Not so much on it yet, but we will have more info shortly. Structure, this will be a 4-week program. So it's going to be very low stakes because we don't want to have like these like 12 or 24 or 48-week long programs because that's too long to do a project. This is more about prototyping an idea, testing it out, getting familiar with the DeSci process. And we want to keep it short and confined so that it's less of a burden. And also so that you can just like, if it doesn't work, it's not a big deal. You just move on. So it's kind of incentivizes like null results in some way. The actual structure of the program, it'll be sort of like a journal club, and I'll lay out how it works in a second, but it's twice a week. We'll meet on Tuesday and Friday. We're going to really try and keep it to around 30 minutes each meeting so that you don't have to like set aside a ton of time. But basically the way it works is there's like a topic for each thing. And so one of the things will be around like data analytics. So before that, we're all going to come prepared with a little bit of data or research on how that relates to our project. Then there will be like a presentation for like 10 or so minutes around just the high level on how to do data analytics for a DeSci project. And then everyone shares the research that they've found on data analytics and how it relates to their project. And then we do sort of like an art critique, like in the school, where people say like, oh, this worked really. This is a good idea. This is a bad idea. And so we'll do sort of a round robin from that for around 20 minutes. And then you take back sort of all the critique you got, and you do it, you fix up your project, or you add it into what you learned. So the idea is you come pre-prepared with something that you've already done. There's like a topic and a discussion. We present on something. Everyone sort of gets critiqued on what they've done. And then after that, you sort of go back and you work on the critiques and improve it however you wish. And we'll try and keep this to around 20, 30 minutes total. And then finally, there is a demo day. So the deliverables by the end of this you should have some, it doesn't have to be big. I want to emphasize that it can be small, but it should have some software or data artifact that is part of the larger DeSci community. And then some sort of technical tweet thread or technical write-up being intentionally, it doesn't have to be big. I think even like 10 tweets strung together is an acceptable thing of what you learned in the 4-week process, even if it's nothing or if it's a null finding. But don't think you have to write like a 10-page PDF and get it accepted to Nature. I think a Twitter thread with some images is perfectly acceptable. Also, this won't apply. This is just sort of things that are good. So week 1, this is basically about like we'll meet twice a week. So the first thing is around defining the problem, so people come with what they're interested in. Then the second part, the second meeting, we talk about the tools and the methods for DeSci. Week 2, we talk about building a community in DeSci. So how do you build like a DeSci community for your project? And then the second part is like how do you collect data from your community? So that process. Week 3 is about sort of data analytics. So how do you analyze the data specifically in a DeSci setting? 4, the second meet is like how do you do a write-up on it? And then we'll do like a rehearsal for the final presentation, and then finally the final presentation. So each of these meetings is like 30 minutes. So it's an hour. So it's like 4 hours of total meetings over the course of a month. It's really not a lot. I didn't want to like put too much programming here because the programming isn't going to make these things successful. It's sort of the rapid iteration and that will. So it's intentionally short here. Next steps. If you'd like to apply, for those of you who haven't already, go to scicombinator.xyz. The deadline is June 15th. I can't emphasize enough that early applications are definitely given a strong priority. So if you're thinking about applying, definitely do so earlier rather than later. The application is pretty simple. It's your name, your Telegram, your background, a summary of your project. Say what you're good doing. We're all very with DeSci here, so you don't need to let us know around how science is broken. You can just tell us what you're working on. How your project will use DeSci, What is the impact of your project? For some weird reason, don't use tabs in your application. It breaks the form where we already pinged them about it. But definitely say like summary of your project. Say this research. Don't forget to say your research question or the data set you're collecting. I think that's very important. Stay in touch. If you'd like to find out more, you can screenshot this. Here's our website. Here's our Twitter. And we have a Telegram group, a public Telegram group if anyone has any questions. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. I'm go Michael on Telegram, and you can reach out there. Okay, so that's about 20 minutes. We have around a couple minutes for questions if anyone has anything they want to ask. Yes, Jackson.
Hey, Michael, I know you said you didn't have too much insight into the funding breakdown, but could you give a rough estimate about, let's say there's 40 projects that join, what the breakdown of that could potentially be, just for planning out the scope of this project over the next 4 weeks?
I don't want to say anything because it's super dependent on a couple people we're reaching out to, and them saying yes or no. So I don't really have any number on that. But I mean, we are also trying to get funding from other sources, and because the problem is like some people want to fund specific projects, and we can't force people to fund everything really, and we want to accept projects into the cohort. So it's kind of we're sort of trying to figure that out. So one thing what we're trying to do is open up funding on a per project basis, and that's just going to depend on people's interest in it.
Okay. And then, yes. I just have one other question. You said, possibly a private Telegram group for collaboration. Would there be any sort of, could we create a group for more dedicated file sharing as well?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay.
We'll get that rolling for the people that have been accepted.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. One more question from the audience.
Hey, Michael, thanks so much for doing this and organizing it. It's not something that you guys had to do, but you are, and it's just super encouraging. I'm assuming most or all the meetings will be online like this, right? Except for the demo day.
Yeah, and all the meetings, anyone can apply. You don't have to be in New York City to apply. All the meetings will be virtual and 30 minutes long, so it's definitely pretty easy. And yeah, so you can sort of do it pretty easily. The demo day will also be virtual for those. The demo day we will have an in-person component, but it'll also be virtual for those who can't travel here.
Awesome, thanks.
Awesome.
Hey, Michael, I just have one other question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
In terms of the times for this meeting, are we putting a preference on a certain time? Just because my availability is kind of limited until around 5 o'clock.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I want to have a repeating meeting from the Tuesday, Friday is sort of the initial thing, but once we have all the people that have been accepted into the program, we'll basically send out like a survey of when is the best time and try and fit that. I really do want everyone to meet together, but we'll try and do it like probably in the evening so that people who have 9 to 5 jobs can still participate.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And thanks for doing this, by the way.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm pretty excited about it. And it will be a regular meeting. It'll be every Tuesday and every Friday at like say 6 p.m. EST. So you can just block that off on your calendar and then not have to worry about it.
Perfect.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And the video will be recorded and I will post it online shortly. And thank you all for coming out. Bye.